Hey gang, John Baccarelli here with your Lake St. Clair Fishing Report, brought to you by Sportsmen's Direct. It is Thursday, May 18th. Water temperature at Belle Isle is still holding steady at 56 degrees. And that's even after our crazy cold 35 degree night last night. We actually had a hard frost here. It wasn't just like up on tops of the windshields. It was all the way down on the grass. And I think my apple trees made it through all of that, and I didn't get the garden planted yet. So I hope you guys, well, if you did get your garden planted, I hope you had it covered up last night, and it's okay after today because it was a hard frost here. So it's been just kind of a crazy week. Lots of wind, cold nights, and but like I said, that water temp has held tight at 56 degrees down at Belle Isle. Now, I do know the shallows definitely cooled off, and some of you guys were having a tough time the last couple of days, at least to start the day off early in the morning for chasing smallies. The bite was much better in the afternoon after we hit the maximum highs, and that sun got up there high and warmed that water up a little bit in shallow. But definitely, you know, these smallies do get affected by cold fronts, especially major ones like what we just had. It doesn't mean they're impossible to catch, but they definitely get harder, and you know, the bite gets a little tougher on these cold fronts. So sometimes just go really small when that happens, especially to start the day out, and then pick up, you know, the size as the day goes on. Sometimes I'll even throw like an 1/8 or 1/16 ounce grub. I mean, I was telling somebody the other day, it's like I wouldn't be embarrassed to get the ultralight out and throw a beetle spin if the bite's really tough on 4 or 6 pound test line. So until it picks up, and then you can move up in size. Walleye bite has been going strong still. I know, I'm sorry I sound like a broken record, but yeah, the Detroit River is still going. Although definitely the clearer water in the last few days, it's been an early bite, and then everybody switches over and runs bottom bouncers and goes out deeper, and that's been, you know, up in the St. Clair River has been the same thing. So, and that's been pretty common now the last couple of years, is once that water cleans up too much and that you get through the first couple hours in the morning, if you don't get your limit, put the bottom bouncers on and finish the limit off. And then some guys are just coming out late and just running bottom bouncers and just slamming them on the bottom bouncers. So that's been the deal. My buddy Jim Felgenauer, he's caught so many walleyes in the last week. He's been focusing on, he's been on a good pot of fish in, like, I guess 42 feet of water up there on the St. Clair up by Algonac, and he's pounded them every single day and taken his limit. And he said, I'm done jigging for a while, and he's going to switch over and do something different. But you know, that's the way it's been for some of the guys. They've just been really hammering those fish. I should bring something up though. I did hear through the grapevine that a couple of guys down on the Detroit River did get some visitors at their homes, meaning the DNR. And just as a reminder to you guys, you know, when you get your limit, that's the limit for the day. That doesn't mean that you can come back in, unload, have lunch, go home, clean fish, and go back out and get another limit. Technically, you know, you are only allowed, that limit is for the day. And if you push it, you may find out, like these guys did, that you know, you're going to have a visitor waiting, because it only takes one person and to either call in on the tip line. But in this case, I guess the DNR have been watching, and if you're doing more, if you're making frequent trips out there, multiple trips a day, you are probably going to get a visit, and it won't be a pleasant one. So just a reminder, guys, you know, just you know, there's a lot of fish out there, and if you're fishing every day, those six fish, I mean, that's a lot of fish you're putting in your freezer. So no sense getting greedy and taking a chance on getting popped. So that's all I'll say about that for today. We got a nice clean satellite image today, and it's showing that lake is really cleaning up. And the Canadian side's got a lot of color to it, but what I'm hearing from the guys that are fishing over there is that color is not, it's not as dark as what it looks like in the satellite image. It's still good fishable water, and I would imagine there's going to be a lot of guys that are fishing the tournament coming up this weekend, the walleye tournament, that are going to be going over there and working that water off the tames. And it looks like they should have some good color and a good mud line over there, provided that the wind doesn't blow and make it too rough to fish over there. But looks like there's some good color over there. The American side, for the most part, is pretty clean as of right now. We do have rain coming in, though. I think it's tomorrow night. They're calling for maybe a ½ inch of rain here locally. Now, for a lot of you guys that are from out of town, and maybe even for you guys that are local, maybe there's some key areas on the lake that are your major runoff areas, especially here on the American side. I'm just going to talk American side. I'm not going to talk about the Canadian side. But on the American side, all the way up on the north end of the lake by the Salt River, that is a good place to have a good mud line out there, especially after a rain. Okay. The second spot coming south that you're going to get good mud lines when we get a good rain is actually the boat launch at Selfridge. There is a drain there that goes down Hall Road and it dumps out. And if we get a good hard rain, you can get a pretty good flow, and that'll flow out there out into the front. It'll create a pretty good mud line out there. You've got the Clinton River, which most of you guys know. That's Harley Ensign, right? The boat launch out there. There's almost always a mud line. Even it takes like incredibly dry, stable conditions in order for there not to be some sort of a mud line or a color line out there in front of the mouth of the Clinton. And surprisingly enough, actually shouldn't be surprising, but there's almost always walleyes on that mud line out there. You've got like double structure, spot on the spot out there when you get that mud line out there, because you also have that channel coming out from the Clinton River. So usually that transition point between the channel and that mud line will hold fish. And then a lot of times that mud line will hook and go around over into that little bay to the south, and you'll create, there's some more structure over there that those fish will hang by. So we're going to go a little bit further south. The next spot is going to be coming out of the mouth of the Metro Park there. That's called Black Creek. Now, that water is generally not like runoff water, but it's always colored water that's coming out of there. And so there's usually a mud line right out there in the front of Metro as well. And then you've got, sometimes you'll get a plume that'll actually flow all the way from the Clinton River when you get like a north wind, or if it's really just fairly calm, the normal flow of the lake from north to the south will bring that color down, and it'll come across the point at Metro and then kind of hook around after that. So those are all areas that you can key on for walleye, especially when we get these kind of conditions that we've had, when that water gets really clear, that you really got to find color when you're looking for those walleyes. So coming down a little bit further south, there's another outflow from the Clinton River, and that is the spillway. A lot of you guys hear me talk about the spillway all the time. That one actually gets more flow than the actual Clinton River does, just because it's a straight shot from where the river comes down as it's moving to the east. And so there's usually quite a bit of a mud line out in front of the Clinton, but usually that mud line has got to go out pretty far for it to be of value. But usually it'll hook and then go down by that 400 club, by that point down there. And so that's another key area. Now, earlier this week, that was a really good area. We had guys in like 6, 7, 8 feet of water in there. We had a good mud line that had formed down there, even without any rain, just from like the wind action, bringing that water down there. And they got some really nice walleyes in front of the 400. So why am I talking about all this? The reason why I'm bringing this up is because we get calls all the time and we get questioned all the time, where should I go for walleye right now? And I think some guys probably get a little ticked at me because I say, you got to find the dirty water, and they think I'm being like a smart aleck or something, but I'm being real and I'm being honest. And that mud line or that color line changes not just by the day, but it can change by the hour. And when you're out there fishing or you're looking for fish, especially if you're looking for walleye this time of the year, you need to find dirty water. And a lot of times it doesn't even matter where the heck it is. If you can find dirty water, and then if you can look on your contour map and figure out like where the break line and stuff intersects where that dirty water is, or where there's a weed bed that maybe intersects where that dirty water is, you're going to have a spot on a spot and it's going to hold fish. So it's really that simple. And so yeah, I'm not being a smart aleck, and I don't want to just give out, spots. I mean, just throw, names out there, because if I don't know what the water clarity is at any given time, then I wouldn't be being honest with you. So when I'm being honest and telling you, find that dirty water, that's legit, okay? So if you're out there hunting down walleyes, look for the dirty water. And it's just kind of common sense, right? So, and we had some guys in this week too that were fishing for bass, and was asking, they weren't having good success. And so I was asking them, hey, well, first question I always ask is, well, can you see the bottom where you were fishing? And a lot of times guys will say, well, yeah, I can see the bottom. And well, then you ask how they're fishing, right? Well, if they're fishing vertical, like maybe they're vertical jigging, or if they're just fishing drop shot rigs or whatever, and they're in gin clear water, and they tell me they're in 6-foot gin clear water and they're fishing drop shots right off the side of the boat, I know they're probably not going to catch many fish, because you're just spooking all those fish when your boat goes over them. So a tip for you guys that are fishing for smallies out there is, number one, for me, when I start smallie fishing, I don't like to fish the fish on beds, okay? I like to just free fish. If they happen to be on beds when I'm out in the deeper water, fine, so be it. But I'm not targeting them on beds. I'm not fishing for specific fish on beds. I just don't do that. I don't need to out here. There's no reason to do it. There's so many fish. So my general rule of thumb, and again, I tell this to guys all the time when they ask me, is I'll start out in water just where the bottom disappears, with my polarized glasses on, looking over the side of the boat, off the bow. If the bottom is disappearing and I cannot make out the bottom, that's where I'm going to start. Okay, and that's where I'm going to start my drifting at from there, and do controlled drifts. And as I'm drifting, I'm going to be casting ahead of the boat, quartering, usually out to one side or the other. And if I'm setting up on a break line when I'm starting out, say I'm setting up on an 8-foot break line and it's breaking to 6 feet on my right near shore and 10 feet on my left, I'm going to pay attention to whether I'm catching fish on the shallow side or the deep side, okay? And then I'm going to work, but I'm going to be quartering, I'm going to be fishing ahead of the boat, because I'm going to try to fish before I get to them. And if I'm in shallower, clearer water, I'm going to cast farther and try to pick these fish off before I get to them. If you got more than one guy in a boat, it gets more complicated than that. 2 guys, it's not so bad. You get 3 or 4, and you're going to have to start, you're going to be fishing mostly to the sides. You still catch fish that way, but I really prefer to catch the fish out in front of the boat. But anyways, point is, the water clarity has an impact too when you're smallie fishing. You can get small fish right underneath the boat, and a lot of times when I take my kids out when they were younger, they would just sit there fishing straight over the side of the boat, and they would catch fish, but they would usually catch the followers after I'm bringing in a fish that I caught. As I'm bringing that fish in, you guys have seen it all the time, right? When they got other fish with them, and then sometimes they're the biggest fish, the ones that are following. But anyway, so they would pick up a lot of those follower fish that would be right underneath the boat. You can get little fish a lot of times underneath the boat, especially like rock bass and stuff like that, and smaller juvenile smallies. But it's a lot harder to get these big mature fish vertical in gin clear water. They just spook. So anyways, that's I guess some tidbits for you guys, and maybe some of you guys hadn't thought about it that much, but you want to get away from the boat in clear water, okay? If you're not used to fishing shallow, clear water, you really just got to get away from the boat. So welcome back to one of my buddies, Garrett Samsel. He's a guide out here on St. Clair. He spent he spent the whole winter down in Florida, and was kind of teasing everybody on Facebook with all of his amazing pictures from down there in the saltwater. Welcome back to Garrett. He likes to fish up on that north end a lot more than the south end. He does multiple species trips all season. I know right now he's doing wallies and smallies, but then eventually he'll switch over and add casting for muskies into the mix too. But I know he's been going out there. He's been taking some beautiful fish already now that he's back. Joe Bauer's been going out doing the multi-species things too, getting wallies and beautiful smallmouth out there. My buddy Mike Coleman, who's a kayak guide. I mean, Mike only fished from a kayak, so if you're a kayak fisherman, this is like prime time for you to really get out and cash in on these smallies. Fish are close to shore. You don't have to paddle far. You don't have all the crazy boat traffic out there, at least not right now. Once we get to Memorial Weekend and beyond, it's going to get a lot worse. But this is prime time for you kayak guys. Just pay attention to the wind direction. But you can have some fantastic days out there on smallies and on walleyes too, because the fish are pretty much going to be closer to shore right now than as close as they're going to be all season down here on the main lake. Let's see. Man, I'm kind of burning through stuff faster than I even thought I was going to today. One other thing I wanted to bring up. If you go back and look at my reports from this time last year, and I think it's almost exactly about the same time, I was talking about getting perch out in the middle of the lake. Well, that is going again, okay, out at off of the Bassett, out in like 20 foot of water out there, the Bassett Channel coming down out of the St. Clair River. They're pounding the big perch out in 20 foot of water, And it's kind of cool because these fish are actively spawning out there. So there's these weed beds out there in the deep water that don't seem to get affected by anything. They're just kind of out there like almost all year, it seems like. And the smallies or not the smallies, the perch are out there spawning. And last year they also got into a lot of walleyes out there too. So I think those were like pre-spawn staging fish they were holding out there, and they moved up into the South Channel area later into the season. So if you're wanting to chase perch, now that is Canadian water, so just forewarned, that is out there on the Canadian side. Not getting a lot of reports here on the American side of perch, but again, that doesn't mean that they're not there and that they're not catchable. It's just that everybody is targeting just about everything else. A lot of the guys fishing from shore right now are fishing for crappies, and guys that are fishing back in the cuts and the canals are fishing for crappies and sunnies, and they are taking limits of both still. And I would expect most of those crappies now, like back in the metro area and stuff, are going to be spawning. So probably a little bit early for the pumpkin seeds and the gills. I don't think the water's warm enough back there yet. But the panfish action is pretty hot in those backwater areas right now, and it's only going to get better going forward. That forecast next week is looking like we got some 80s and upper 70s coming again, and maybe some milder, or I shouldn't say milder, maybe some little lower wind forecast than what we've had the last several days. And it looks like we're going to switch over to like a southeasterly flow, which again is going to push warm water back on this American side. So I think that's all I've got for you guys this week. You know, just pay attention to the details out there. We really need this rain that we got coming right now. We really need to get some color back into the water on the American side for the walleyes. Some warmer weather would help that smallie bite for sure. But it looks like going into the weekend, we are going to get that. And so the bite should definitely pick up going forward. So with that said, that's all I got for you this week, and we'll see you in the shop this weekend. Hey, if you like this video content and you want to get updated as soon as the next video is out there, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon, and you'll get notified as soon as the next video is up.